Welcome to another conversation on the All About You podcast. My name is Sheila and I am your host. People are fascinating, and I believe that everyone has a story to tell of their travels, hobbies, passions and experiences. I want to get those stories told so they can entertain, inspire and showcase the amazing talents of people and maybe giving food for thought to you, the listener. My guests have taken risks, put themselves out there, created businesses, or taken their passion to the next level. I feel very privileged and honoured to tell those stories in my All About You podcast. So enjoy the conversation. Welcome to another conversation on the All About You podcast. Do you know what you're having for dinner this evening? And we always have that question, what's for dinner tonight? During this conversation, we're going to be talking all about meal planning with my guest, Audrey. So, Audrey, welcome to the All About You podcast.
I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so excited to talk to you about meal planning.
Well, I'm personally very excited because I know this comes up in my household. What's for dinner? So let's talk about, firstly, what is meal planning? What does that mean? How do we do it? Why should we do it?
Meal planning is a thankless job, right? I mean, we all have to eat, but everybody, I think at some point gets into like a funk of what's for dinner. It is a chore. I would say, it's a chore, it's a problem, but it's a good problem to have. We're very blessed to be able to have this problem and have enough to eat and, have so many choices and such great access to food. So I did want to mention that. There's a really interesting statistic that I like to share that in a survey, 85% of people did not know what was for dinner just hours before dinner. So 85% of people surveyed did not know what they were having for dinner that night. I mean, I can understand it's daunting to figure out what's for dinner day in and day out. And then I think a lot of people have individual obstacles when it comes to meal planning. So some people have dietary requirements or, they're on a certain diet or maybe like a gluten-free diet. People with gluten sensitivities, that's a whole nother ball game. And even if just one member of your family has gluten sensitivities, that kind of throws everything off. If you're like me and you have kids, it looks a little different because, my kids aren't going to want something fancy. They want simple food, and I have to kind of think about what they would eat. And and even when I was single, planning for one person is also a challenge. I mean, cooking just for one person and not having like a million leftovers is also a challenge. So every individual has their own challenges when it comes to meal planning. And I think that's the great thing about meal planning is that you can make it your own too. And you can figure out what works for you and just the best way to plan out what to eat for your lifestyle.
I think it's very interesting. When we talk about meal planning, there seems to be two camps of people. Some people will do a weekly shop, some people will do a monthly shop, and some people, well, I just go around the supermarket, I buy the same things every week, and then I get home and think, okay, this is what I've got in the fridge, this is what I've got in the freezer, this is what I can make. Other people, this is what I'm going to make Monday to Friday, therefore I need to buy XYZ. So I think we've got two very distinct camps of I've bought things, I'll come up with something to make with those things, or this is what I'm going to make, therefore this is what I need to buy. What's your take on this sort of thing?
I mean, if that works for you, that's great. For me, I like to plan a week at a time, and I like to plan 5 meals and not 7. I think planning 5 meals is a lot more realistic than planning 7. Life just comes up too. I mean, my kids have soccer one night. I have to take my dog to the vet. Life just happens, and everyone else has these same challenges. And maybe you just want to go to dinner one night with your friends, or maybe you have a local restaurant you visit weekly. something like that. And I think it takes the stress off when you do, 5 meals at a time versus 7. But if you're the type of person, I mean, there are people who, they really live out in the middle of nowhere, and they're an hour, 2 hours from the grocery store. Maybe they have to plan a month at a time. It's hard, for them not to. So, it's like an individual preference. I think for me, definitely a week at a time, and then planning for 5 meals and not 7. And then I also like to keep some backup ideas too. So we'll go into that in a little bit too.
For me personally, I work on sort of 5 days meals, and I sit down once a week with my husband. We look at our diary and say, okay, who is doing what, who is going to be in the kitchen that night, and then we sort of work it around what's going on, who's going to be chef, who's going to be doing something else. And I try to sort of do a meat one, a vegetable-based one, maybe a fish-based one, and work it out from there. That works for me. But that is just talking about 2 adults. We've got no children, no particular dietary requirements. It's sort of quite straightforward. So I sort of have a monthly A4 sheet on the fridge, plan 5 days, and I generally Monday to Friday, and at the weekend we might be out, or we might have people around, so that's a little bit different. And that is so good. Even my husband now, first thing in the morning, oh, what's for dinner tonight? Okay, we need to get some mushrooms, and we need to take something out the freezer. It just makes life easier. So really, around breakfast time, we know what the plan is for tonight. I love meal planning. I just think it's the best thing ever.
No, I love that. And I mean, you're reducing your stress because it's one less thing in your mental load that you have to think about. You already have a plan, and you already know what actions you have to take. Like you said, do I have to defrost something? Do we need to run to the grocer? Like, what do we need to do? One of the things about meal planning is that the reason why people find it stressful is because it is a mental load. And it can be like an unsolved problem going on in your head. You think about it, like if you don't have a plan, and in the morning you're like, oh, well, what's for dinner? And you're like, oh, I'll think about it later. And you keep hashing it out, and it'll contribute to your mental load. So it's a great way to reduce your mental load, so you have space in your head to think about other things, do other things, just reduce your stress overall. That's why I love meal planning. I already have enough stress. I don't need to stress about dinner.
I think another thing as well, sort of when I'm cooking, we'll sort of cook for 2 people, but 9 times out of 10 there is an extra portion which I put in like a poly box or a Tupperware, wherever you come from, and that will go in the freezer. And if you're doing that on a daily basis, that soon builds up. So when you do have, we're really shattered, what have we got? There's a leftover we can take out. We number the tops, and we have a little list. Number 3 is this, and number 5 is that. And that is a lifesaver. We're not wasting anything. We're not overeating, as in this is a Wrigley big portion. We've sort of portioned it out. Okay, we're cooking for 3 people, 1 each for us and an extra for the freezer. And having those extra portions in the freezer for virtually most of the meals we cook is such a lifesaver.
Yeah, that's one of my big tips, is to, double up, or even like you said, possibly triple up. For me, like something I like to do if I have a recipe with something like ground turkey or ground beef, like let's just say I'm making like chili or something, to do a double batch of browning just the meat, because you can pull the meat out later and say, oh, do I want to do sloppy joes? Do I want to do tacos? Do I want to do it, maybe like a different style of chili? So you don't even have to fully freeze the meal that you're, cooking. Like if I'm making chili, maybe just go ahead and do that extra work of doubling up and, browning an extra batch of meat to freeze. And then that's so easy to defrost, for crazy nights. You can do, like here we do like a lot of tacos with that kind of meat, or, just go ahead and cook a double batch. I love pulling out a meal out of our freezer. It's so easy, especially when things don't go your way some days and you're just like, I just don't have it in me to, cook tonight. Just popping something in the microwave or reheating something in the oven, it really does take a lot of stress off.
And I think that is very, very satisfying. If we talk about chili, we put a portion of chili in the fridge, you can always whip that out and you can jazz that up with some vegetables or some cheese or something. So you've got a basic dish, starting with mincemeat, as we would call it, or ground beef, and then you can add a few bits and pieces to it, and it's a completely different meal. But
I love that, yeah.
Freshly cooked, you're not wasting anything, and that is just, it's so satisfying and it's easy.
Yeah, and speaking of waste, one of the reasons I love meal planning is because, I care about the environment. I really want to reduce food waste. I think food waste is definitely a problem. I know here in the US it can be a problem. It's probably a problem in all over the developed world. But I feel like when you have a plan, way more likely to use the ingredients you have in your fridge so you're not wasting food, and then therefore you're not wasting money either. It's just really important to me. Something I do on my website, I make a lot of sourdough recipes. I have a lot of sourdough discard recipes. I have a lot of freezer meal recipes. I'm just really passionate about helping people reduce their food waste. And I think also when you think about it, when it's in your mind to meal plan and reduce your own food waste, you can also even think like, oh, I'm not going to get to that lettuce or those bananas or whatnot. And even then you can have a plan for it. You can plan to compost it if you're able to do that, or if your, city or wherever you live has a compost program, or if you have a small one in your backyard, or who knows, maybe you're a farmer, you can just, throw it on your big compost pile. We have a small compost pile. So even if certain food is, quote unquote wasted, we're still able to use it as, fertilizer for our garden.
I think that's a very interesting point you're bringing up about food waste, because I think particularly in the Western world, we are quite fixated on our fridges and our freezers should be jam-packed. And if we just look at the fridge being jam-packed, we have got no idea what's lurking at the back. We've probably got no idea what is sitting in that vegetable drawer. And I am quite joyful at the respect of a fridge that I can open and I can see the shelves, because there is not stuff stacked on top of everything else. There's not stuff piled at the back that I've got no idea when did I buy it, what was I thinking I was going to make with it. So I think it's very much, we have this problem. We should have a fridge jam-packed with stuff. That doesn't actually serve us well in respect of meal planning, particularly thinking about food wastage. I think that just, when there is so much stuff in there, we just open. I have got no idea. I'm going to order food because I have no idea what's in there. I don't know what my plan was when I bought this avocado and this cream. I have no idea what I was thinking I was going to make. So what's your take then, Audrey, on a full fridge, or a fridge where you can open, you can actually see what you've got in there and it's easy to see?
That's a great point, because, yeah, like you said, it's kind of that old saying, I can't see the forest for all the trees. You can't figure out what to eat when there's like too many options. I mean, I think it's normal for people to get overwhelmed, and then you kind of end up with like odds and ends of, you're like, oh, like I have an avocado and I have cream, and then you're like, okay, well, that doesn't make a meal. I did like, how we were talking about earlier, how, you might freeze a small batch of chili, and having those little freezer meals, like even if it's like a 1 portion or 2 portion thing, you could be like, oh, well, I have this avocado and I can go to my freezer and I have, chili to go with it, or I have, a chicken taco, or, maybe like an enchilada casserole or something in my freezer. Freezer meals are a great way to help with that, hodgepodge of things left in your fridge. something that I like to do in our family, and we usually do it Friday or Saturdays, is we do like a leftover night, and we might make something else with it. Maybe like we make like a big batch of popcorn, and we make, you know, some other things to go with it, and just everybody has leftovers. And that way we're able to clear out the fridge and clear out any odds and ends. And, you know, right now my kids are pretty small, so they're not terribly picky. So it's easy to, you know, give them like a random assortment of food and they'll still be happy for dinner. But it is a great way to reduce, you know, just the clutter in our fridge, and to make sure that we eat everything that we've prepared. And it also helps save money.
Absolutely. I mean, that is a huge thing now. I think we are all seeing in our local supermarket, things are definitely going up in price. I'm sure I didn't pay that the last time I picked this up in the supermarket. So, yeah, I think we're all seeing that. And I think if we're taking the example of the fridge being stuff that we have no idea what's in there, it's almost like, what have you got in your freezer? What have you got in your cupboard? And just generally having a look around, oh, right, I've got this in there. What was I thinking when I bought this? What was my plan? Okay, when we go to the supermarket, have we written a list of what we actually need? Or are we, well, I'm going to get 2 tins just in case, because we don't realise we've already got 4 tins at home. So my husband always laughs at me because I do everything in fours. 4 tins of this, 4 tins of that, 2 jars of this, 2 jars. Those are my bulk standard staples. Can we not buy 3? No, because I've got 2 and the shelf will sit 4. So for me, all those staples, 2 of this, 4 of that, what I know from those basics, I can make up many, many different meals. So to me, that's a no-brainer. So what do you think about going through your freezer, going through your pantry? Do you have a system?
I think that's, you know, a great part of meal planning is to shop your pantry or shop your freezer, shop your fridge first, and then, you know, what is it that you have on hand already that you can cook with. And then if you happen to, you know, find a sale in the grocery store and you stock up on things that'll last, you know, like you're saying, like canned or jarred food, you know, that doesn't go bad for a long time. So when you find a deal, you're able to do meal plans around that. And then there are some things that you can make with just pantry ingredients, some, you know, go-to meals, you know, maybe like pasta and tomato sauce with meatballs, or, you know, things that you just keep in your pantry for busy days to, you know, help with your meal planning.
Audrey, what's your take on buying sort of canned jar vegetables or frozen vegetables in respect of fresh? Because there's always this debate. Are fresh vegetables better than canned or jar or frozen vegetables? What's your take?
I mean, I like to do a mix of both. I mean, obviously, like if I could, I would love to just buy fresh vegetables, but that's not always possible with just the way life is. Even with grocery shopping once a week, I feel like, you know, some perishable items go really quickly. It's, you know, you've probably seen those memes on Facebook where they talk about an avocado and it's like not ripe, not ripe, not ripe, and then at midnight it's like I'm ready. And then at 12:01, I'm too brown, sorry. But you know, some does go faster than others. I do a mix of things at my house. I try to get lots of fresh vegetables and lots of fresh fruit, but we also, you know, we don't have a problem with frozen or canned vegetables. I mean, as long as we're eating vegetables, I'm happy.
I mean, I must admit, when our local supermarket, you know, they had a promotion on fresh carrots, and I just thought, okay, so I bought several bags of fresh, put some music on in the kitchen, peeled them, chopped them, put them in freezer bags, sort of 2 portions in a bag with the date on. It took me all of probably 20 minutes to do a couple of bags. I was quite happy, scraping, chopping, put them in the bag, in the freezer. That has been phenomenal. When I'm sort of cooking, okay, carrots, take a bag out of the freezer, put them in the steamer. They're fresh carrots. they're still looking great. They steam beautifully. They keep their colour. I don't know why I haven't done that before. That was just great.
Yeah, and that's another great thing to do when you have like in-season produce. Here it's coming up maybe like in another month or so, it'll be strawberry season. And we have a strawberry farm not far from our house where you can pick your own. And my kids, like, they go crazy and they pick like way too many strawberries, but it's fun for them. And the strawberries are really good from the farm. So we put some in the freezer and they're great, later if we want to pull out for like a cake or just to eat or, to make, crepes with or something. And it's really nice. It's like you do the work up front and you get to relax later when you do things like that.
I think that's the bonus, isn't it? You've got basic frozen stuff in your freezer that you bought on offer, spend a bit of time preparing, and then you go to the freezer, right, I need a vegetable, right, there we go, there's a bag, 2 portion of carrots in the steamer, off we go. I mean, that's satisfying, isn't it?
And I like how you did carrots because that's such a versatile side dish and they're so healthy for you too.
Exactly. So I think, it's funny you talking about in a month you'll be coming into strawberry season. We're just finishing at the end of February because we get strawberries in January. So it's quite bizarre. And of course, when they first come into the shops, they're incredibly expensive. And then as the season goes on, yeah, absolutely. Buy them when they're really cheap. Put them in the freezer, good for smoothies, good for desserts, making a fruit compote or a salsa, something like that. Absolutely. I think this is the thing. When we go to the supermarket, look at those offers and think, okay, that's an offer. What can I do with frozen strawberries? Come up with 4 or 5 different things. Okay, it's worth buying 2 kilos while they're really cheap, and then freeze them, and then you've got them for all these different things. So cost effective.
Exactly. And that's on a lot of people's minds right now. Like, you're talking about how, you're browsing the grocery store and things have gone so up. It's definitely hit here too. Things have gone up a lot in price. I know right now in the US we're having a problem with eggs, and I actually don't think it's as big of a problem in Texas as it is elsewhere in the US. I think because we have a lot of egg farmers here, but eggs have just been like extremely expensive. And things have gone up a lot. So when you take the time, to think about things and to meal plan and to, shop in season produce, save it for later, and just, come up with a plan. It's really good for your budget. And a lot of people right now, I know that my family, we're watching our budget, we're watching the grocery prices, and, we really want to stretch our dollars.
Talked about meal planning where we cook and then we put an extra portion in the freezer. One thing I've started to do is to freeze very small portions of something. I've made a strawberry sauce for a dessert and I've got just a little bit left over. I will freeze that in ice cube trays and then punch out the ice cubes, put them in a bag, and then they're going to be perfect just to drop in a smoothie. 2 sort of cubes is great in a smoothie to give it that lovely strawberry taste, or a bit of strawberry sauce for an ice cream. So we don't always have to think about freezing a whole portion of something. We can just freeze just that little bit of sauce or that little bit of something we've got left over, because that can be just a topping or add a little bit of flavor to something.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, and definitely. And then that way you're not wasting it. You're able to use it for later. And, you're saving money instead of going out and buying more strawberries for your ice cream or buying some, chocolate sauce for your ice cream. You're like, oh no, I've got some strawberry, compote in my freezer that I can use tonight.
I'm just wondering because, you're talking about the cost of food prices in the US. We've got the same here. I wonder what the impact this is going to have on people sort of doing their weekly or monthly shop. Are people going to be scaling back on their budget, and is it going to make them more conscious of, I've only got this amount of money, I'm really going to plan the meal? So I'm just wondering if this economic issue we have got with food now is going to sort of encourage people to pay a little bit more attention and plan those meals, whereas before a lot of us were very guilty of just going into the supermarket, take this, grab that, put that in the trolley without really thinking too much. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I definitely think a lot of people, are watching what they spend now, and they, want to stretch their money. Meal planning and reducing food waste is a great way to do that. I mean, I would find it hard not to, with the way the grocery prices are going up. You kind of have to put more thought into it. Like you were saying, you're not just, oh, I'm going to, throw an extra one in my cart. I think people are really planning out what they're buying from the grocery store now. So it's even more important to have a plan these days.
Well, I mean, the internet is a fabulous resource for recipe ideas, how to cook things, different ideas with food. Can we talk a little bit about your website now, Audrey?
Sure. I have a website. It's Two Pink Peonies, like the flower, twopinkpeonies.com. I share a lot of easy family-friendly meals. I have a lot of slow cooker meals, sheet pan meals, Instapot meals. I do a lot of sourdough recipes if anyone is a sourdough baker. But I think, like you were saying, the internet's a great place to meal plan. I'd love it if, people got some ideas and recipes from my website. You can also kind of get in the mindset of meal planning with your social media. If there's certain, Facebook groups you can join, there are a lot of good Facebook groups for recipes. And then, when you log on to Facebook, you can be like, oh yeah, I need to, do my meal plan, or I need to find a few more ideas for this week, and you can save them for later. The same thing, I know a lot of people use Pinterest, and Pinterest is just, a great go-to for everyone to find almost any kind of recipe for any kind of diet or any kind of need. There's so many great ideas on Pinterest. And then, I always say, find a few food bloggers to follow, and they'll inspire you, to cook and to try new recipes. And that's always a good thing, and it'll help you with your meal planning too.
I think I remember reading some statistics some time ago saying the average family has about 6 to 8 standard meals that they just rotate. What's your take with your family?
I would say it's a little different for me because, I have a recipe website, so we're always trying new things and I'm always making new recipes, but we do have some go-tos. I mean, because I don't cook things for my website every day. That would be a lot of work. Sometimes I'm just making something that I'm not going to photograph or do a video for. It's just got to get dinner on the table. And just like anyone else, we have our go-tos. And I think it's good to have a list, when you write those down too, even I think a good 10 recipe list of 10 really good recipes that your family always seems to enjoy. And that way, when you're like, I just don't know what to put on my shopping list this week, I just don't know what I'm going to cook this week, you can look at that list. And a lot of the time, these recipes are, comfort foods, because you're used to having them so much.
And I think particularly, we're in winter here. Hopefully spring is not too far away. But in the winter, we all want, I call it the stodge, we want the pasta, we want the rice, we want the potatoes, we want the mashed potato. That's what we love, isn't it? We want something sort of whole, hearty and warming.
Yeah, those all sound really good. Yeah, and soups and stews. And yeah, I think, in addition to, thinking about in-season produce, just thinking about the weather and the season, it can really be inspiring for your meal planning.
I've always said, if we ate as Mother Nature intended, so, you're in the States, I'm in Spain, if we ate all the seasonal produce as it comes through, we get very excited in January, we go into strawberry season. You've got it in about a month's time. If we ate as Mother Nature intended, our body over the course of the year, we would get the heavy carbohydrate, stodgy stuff in the winter. In the summer, we were eating the salads, very water-based, the fruits. Our body would get everything it wants throughout that year with the vitamins and the minerals if we ate as Mother Nature intended. What do you think about that, Audrey?
Oh, I love that. Here, we get so much produce shipped in from other parts of the world. It's kind of unreal that, you would have strawberries all year round, but, we do. I like to shop in season produce just because I feel like it tastes better, but I really do agree, that's a good way to think about it. It probably is how nature intended, in the winter. We were talking about mashed potatoes and soups and stews. I mean, hibernating and staying inside, and then having a lighter food in the summer, like lettuce and berries and fruit and that sort of thing. I agree. That's a good way to think about things. And that is probably what nature intended and how nature intended us for us to eat.
I think it's very worrying to me when we think about the fact that, strawberries in a lot of countries are available all through the year. Do we ever think about, okay, where did those strawberries come from? How long did it take for them to get from A to B? It is quite bizarre when I think, okay, if I want to have strawberries in November, how many thousand kilometers have they traveled? Were they grown naturally? Were they grown in a greenhouse or in water and this sort of thing? It makes you wonder when you're looking at what would be typically out of season produce for your country. What is the logistics behind that? I think is quite scary.
I know, it really is. I'm a big fan of shopping in season produce, and if possible, if you have like a local farmers market or a local farm or something, that's always a great thing to support. And definitely, I feel like if you are lucky and you have a farmers market around you, that's a great place to just walk around and get inspired for your meal planning.
I think particularly with something like a farmers market, the people and the producers are more than happy to tell you how to cook it, what to serve it with, maybe just a sprinkling of sea salt and olive oil in the pan for 30 seconds either side. They are more than happy. If you come across a vegetable or something, you think, well, it looks great, but I have no idea what to do with it.
I love that too. It's like it's their product and they're the product expert, it's really a beautiful thing.
So Audrey, where can people get in touch with you if they want to go more into meal planning and coming up and sort of doing a bit of a recipe idea and planning their fridge and their store cupboard? How can they get in touch with you?
Okay, well, they can visit me at my website. Again, it's 2pinkpeonies.com, 2 pink peonies like the flowers. And at the bottom of my homepage, I have a email sign up where you can sign up and get a meal plan, a week of meals all planned out for you. So that might inspire some people and help some people figure out what's for dinner.
Well, that sounds fantastic because I have got no problem in stealing someone else's ideas. When it comes to meal planning, I'm why would I need to reinvent the wheel when you've done all the heavy lifting for me? That sounds
exactly.
Great idea.
Yeah, feel free to steal all my ideas. I'd love for people to take them.
I think it's been a fascinating conversation because this question every day, what's for dinner? We just, oh God, I have no idea. I've no idea what's in the fridge, the freezer, the store cupboard. It's a question that's gone on for years, and I think it's getting worse because a lot of people are working longer hours now. Even if people are working from home, they've got to think about lunch at home.
Instead of just dinner, now you have to think about lunch, and it's like you're doing twice the work instead of, being able to go out for lunch, or you're eating from home so much more. A lot. Yes, so many people are working from home these days. At least with working from home, you can, you kind of have some opportunities to prep some stuff for dinner, or maybe use your slow cooker or something like that too.
I think that's a very, very point though, because a lot of conversations I've had with people is, one thing I miss is like my staff restaurant, my staff canteen, or somebody would bring something in. That is all gone. I don't even think, I've got my breakfast down, I'm organised for dinner. I haven't a clue what I'm going to have for lunch. Do I need to go out and get something? I haven't really got time, or the weather's bad. So yeah, working from home has actually brought in this extra meal that people have to think about.
Yeah, it's an extra stress. It's an extra, something in your head and extra mental load. But I like how you were saying you were freezing even small portions of meals. So that, that's great for lunch. If you have just a little bit of chili left over, you could do it with like a baked potato or something. Or, I'm usually not like super hungry at lunch. So just like you said, freezing that little bit of leftovers, that's a great idea.
A good supply of freezer bags and a great pen that works in the freezer. Trust me, I've learned that mistake. I bought these pens and like, at the time, and then you go and it's all smeared and it's worth spending, a little bit of extra money on a good freezer pen so that
Yes,
you don't
get yourself set up for success. And then once you have the right tools, I think you feel, more apt to do it. When you don't have the right things, you're just like, well, last time I tried, it got smeared or it wiped off and I don't know what's in there. But when you set yourself up with the right tools, you set yourself up for success.
Absolutely. Well, Audrey, this has been a fantastic. I feel really inspired now. I feel I need to like go and have a good old look in my freezer and see what's in there and check my store cupboard. It's been a really, really interesting conversation, and I hope people can take some hints and tips that we've been talking about in our different situations, you with a family with children, and talking about seasonal recipes and freezing things, and get chatting to your local people in the supermarket and your people selling their produce and get their ideas.
It was so lovely chatting with you, and I hope some people get, inspired and get some ideas. I mean, there's so many great reasons to meal plan, so I just hope it helps people get organized a little bit.
Audrey, thank you so much. It's been a really interesting conversation and very, very helpful. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please subscribe on whatever platform you are using. It is free, and if you would like to tell your story, please contact me on allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com and let's tell your story.